saying that every time.
Do it.
Especially at the moment, because singing makes the heart happy, and God knows we need some happiness in the world today. But welcome back, guys, to another Real Talk with me, Emma G. We are at a different time today because of many different factors. One, the world's on fire. Two, we've got Lauren LeMunyan here, and she's fantastic, and I wanted to make sure that we got the full hour of inspiration, motivation, Spitfire-ness that she just emanates wherever she is. And then, of course, I'm being a diva because I'm filming a music video tonight. And real talk, right? Like,
keep it real.
I am the reason why we had to change the time. And I really, really thank you for joining me at this earlier time. How are you doing, my love?
I'm better now that I'm here. I just love when you embrace your full diva. Like, listen, let's move the time because I got things to do. Embrace it.
It's great for my career, not so great for my relationships, but that's right.
So be it.
Yeah. Show up as your authentic self and exude unapologetic. I don't give a rat's. Now, normally this is a no holds barred when it comes to language. It is 4:00 in the afternoon though, so if you want to, do what you want to do. Be you.
I'll limit my F-bombs.
I mean, you can still say fuck, let's be real. But, land of the free, we're here. But after my gross introduction of you, would you like to tell people?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
It's sunny, it's beautiful, summer is here, and I feel like all I want to do is cry and laugh at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I think it's normal to do that. And in the same breath.
Right.
Yeah. All the feels all at once.
For real. Mm-hmm. So would you like to introduce more about who you are and how you show up and who is Lauren LeMunyan? What?
It depends on the venue. I think that's probably the best way to describe myself. So depending on whether I'm sitting right here in front of my computer screen, being an executive coach and small business coach for the last 4 years as the Spitfire coach. And I started something called the Spitfire Institute, which is all about finding your inner passion, purpose, self-care, motivation to align it and spit that fire. And then about 200 feet to the east is my living room. And every Thursday and Sunday night, I am one half of the Justin and Lauren show, where we have been hosting our concerts every Thursday and Sunday night and have been featured on CNN and Reuters and Washington Post and Washingtonian Magazine, which has been bizarre. And then if I ever do leave my house to perform, then I become Jersey Fresh with no vowels. And I do some cover rapping and singing and all that jazz. So that's me.
Just in a nutshell, Okay, so I have so many questions. First of all, as Jersey Fresh, we know and we love the fact that you are actually just an undercover rapper who has also rapped with, and I'm forgetting the name right now, Wyclef Jean, I believe it was.
I didn't rap with him. I rapped for him at his request.
Oh, my bad. Oh,
his request. He was like, I heard she can rap. I need to hear her do Biggie. And I was like, if Wyclef says so, I will do it. Twist my arm, Wyclef.
So how did that happen? Tell me everything.
How does anything ever happen in my life? Just random coincidences that align as they're needed to. So there was a venue in Barracks Row in DC, like Eastern Market area. They were doing a promotional private event for Guinness's light blonde beer, which I can't even drink beer. Justin, my boyfriend, was running sound, so he brought his PA equipment, brought his guitar so Wyclef could play, because Wyclef is their spokesperson. And Wyclef was coming from doing the Tiny Desk concert series. He just rolled in, did a very fast sound check, and I was chatting with him, and I said, do you want a little tambourine at your foot so you can get some percussion? He's like, what you know about the tambo? And I was like, well, my boyfriend is a musician, and he likes to have it right by his foot. And he goes, what do you do? I go, I rap. And he just kind of looked at me like, who are you? What is happening? And I think he thought I was joking, but he later found out Justin's bassist was there, and we brought musical instruments in case he wanted a backing band. He played a couple of his hits, which were awesome. There were like 40 people here in this private concert with
Nice.
Wyclef just like singing Gone Till November and Hips Don't Lie. And I'm like living my preteen life, like, yes, like this is happening. What? And we're doing like a Facebook Live. So all these people are like, this isn't happening. That's not Wyclef. We're like, yes, it is. And then he says, like, I hear these guys are musicians. I want to hear what they can do. And Justin starts playing This Is Love. I start rapping over it, and he's yelling from the back, "Too Biggie!" And so I did. And then he gets up afterwards and does his own remix of Justin's song This Is Love, and then puts it into a Bob Marley song. Yeah.
What is going on? That's insane.
That's like one of those, like, this is never going to happen again. I'm just going to absorb all of this right now.
For real. And it's fantastic. Like, you know, it's so funny. When I first moved to DC, the amount of people who are like, why the fuck are you in DC? Like, you're a musician. Musicians don't move to the political epicenter of the world. What are you doing? But there's so many phenomenal experiences like that just happen.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. Because people converge on this town. Like, people will spend money on music. They will spend money going out. People are doing private events all the time. And you never know who's passing through. You never know who you're going to walk by on the street. Like, my first year in DC, Bono was in the same elevator as me. and I wiped construction dust off of his arm and said, "Don't worry, it looks edgy." Like, little 22-year-old me is like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll clean you up." And his assistant's looking at me like, "Girl, you crazy?" I'm like, "Have a nice day." And he's like, "Happy holidays." I'm like, what? Yeah.
At least you recognized them. I remember the first time, like, well, not the first time, but I guess the biggest pinnacle of my career was playing a show with Dave Chappelle. And like intuitively, like I knew the name, didn't know what he looked like. So I'm like, "Oh, hi, I'm Emma." He's like, "Yeah, I'm Dave." I'm like,
oh, you're that Dave.
Yeah. I would be over here. Awkward. That's cool, though. I mean, I know what Bono looks like.
Well, he also had his like big red glasses on, so.
Of course.
Yeah. He's like my height too. He's real small.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're taller than I am, so.
Wait, how tall are you?
I'm 5'3.5".
You're taller than me. I'm 5'2 3/4".
Shut up.
Swear.
Okay.
I just wear a lot of
high heels unite.
little wedges for a little lift.
I love it. So how did you come up with the name Jersey Fresh?
Jersey Fresh.
With no vowels,
No vowels.
And the Z in the middle because you're edgy.
Well, there have been many iterations of the spelling, but Jersey Fresh is, I'm from New Jersey, and so our produce has this nice little stamp that says Jersey Fresh as like the Department of Agriculture's seal of approval of like, this is a Jersey Fresh tomato. And it's always just kind of stuck with me. And I started rapping with Justin's band like 3.5 years ago, like just by chance. And I was like, I need to have something. Like, I don't want to just be Lauren LeMunyan. Like, I got to have something with a little razzle dazzle. And my nickname growing up actually was Little Onion, because my last name's LeMunyan.
Okay, so that's my next question is, if you are a Jersey Fresh produce from New Jersey,
I'm not an onion. No, although I do have many layers.
Yeah,
and I do make people cry. So it's not so off-brand. But Jersey Fresh just kind of like stuck with me, but I'm like, I don't want to get sued by New Jersey. So how do I make this a little bit more like personalized? So I just removed the E's, because nobody has time for E's. Like, leave the vowels out. Like,
my name starts with an A. What's up?
Oh, you take all the E's. The E's are all for you. But it's been fun. I actually bought the domain. I bought like 4 different spellings of it. I was like, do I make it a Z? Do I keep it as an S? So now it's JRSYFRSH. So that actually,
that's motion going.
Yeah, because honestly, the more you change the spelling, the more it confuses people. You have to make it simple for people to be like, oh, that's where I need to go. Because when I tried to explain, people are still misspelling it, much like my last name. I'm sure you. I mean, know what that's like.
Ms. LeMunyan.
Yes.
Tell me where your name comes from. Because
my dad.
I say that. Okay, to be fair, my name comes from my mother. So there you go. It's not always clear. So, if like historically,
Yeah.
what is the history on the song on the
So
name?
on the song of
On
my
this,
name. So
yes.
funny enough, there is another LeMunyan in this area who is a state politician, and my dad always told me that it meant the crippled in French. And I'm like, that it can't be that like to the nose. I thought he was making a joke because I kept spraining my ankles and like I was very like accident prone as a kid. So he's like, yeah, it means the crippled. I was like, what? So must have been like 10 or so years ago. I was living in Fairfax, Virginia, and I was going into the Safeway, and there was a guy outside named Jim LeMunyan, and he's got bumper
That's a
stickers.
supermarket for everybody who's watching from
Yes,
New Zealand. Safeway is a supermarket. It's like
Safeway
our
is a
version of
supermarket.
Countdown. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
So I walk up to this table, and he's got his bumper stickers out, and he's like collecting signatures. And I go, I think we're related. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I pull out my license. I was like, I'm a LeMunyan too. He spells his Lemunyon. There are different
Okay,
spellings of it. And
okay.
he said, well, do you know the history? And I said, well, my dad told me it meant the crippled. And he's like, he's not so far off. Apparently, his daughter was studying up in Montreal. So it's French lineage. It's French Canadian. And she found this book about the LeMunyan clan. So apparently, during like, religious upheaval, our people refused to convert. And
Oh,
so instead of converting, they said, well, we're going to chop all the hands off of the men and we're going to exile you to the Isle of Jersey. So the running joke is, well, at least they grow back. So yeah,
so,
we were
hold on. So that they had their hands chopped off because they wouldn't convert from
to
what
Catholicism.
to Catholicism. Okay,
Mhm.
and then they exiled everybody to an island
The,
called Jersey.
the Isle of Jersey. It is a
That's
French territory.
hilarious.
And so part of my family went through Canada, part went through like Rhode Island and Connecticut. Yeah,
And now
weird.
we're Jersey French. What's up?
I was like, we got lots of Jersey roots, but like we don't know much about the French side because my grandmother was like last name was Babcock, like straight up Irish roots, and then there's
Mhm.
like German and some English and stuff on my dad's side. My mom's 100% Italian roots that we've tracked back, I think like two or three generations. So yeah, very strange because I don't really know much about the name other than that some people have it in this country in different spellings. Like I've seen a number of spellings. I don't speak French, so I have no idea what the book says, but I would be interested in getting it translated to know. But
So if anybody's watching this who speaks French,
we
holler at us.
let me know.
Let's learn some family history, right?
Yeah. So,
That's awesome. So part-time rapper,
mhm.
part-time handless person who doesn't like to be told what religion you are, part-time Spitfire coach,
Full-time
um,
Spitfire coach.
full-time,
Full
full-time.
time.
So tell me about that because being a Spitfire, there is so much to being a Spitfire, but I don't think it's a term that a lot of people really understand or, that sort of know what that means. What is being a
Yeah.
Spitfire coach to you?
Well,
Because you've already lectured me that you're not a motivational speaker, and we're going to talk about that.
call me out, Emma. Well, so the interesting thing is, when I went to get certified as a coach back in 2015, I
Hmm.
went through a very like intense process. And the first weekend that I was doing training, we did this very deep meditation.
Hmm.
And I have never had visualization like this, and I still to this day have not had it, where like everything was like this bright white light, and like this word just popped into my head, and I couldn't kick it. Like it was just there, and it was Spitfire. And I kept like holding on to this of like, oh, I'm the Spitfire coach. That's me. Like that's what I do. And I couldn't really like name it because I would look up the definition and it's really gnarly towards women. Like it's, that you lose your temper, that you're irrational, you can't control your emotions. And that's never what I ascribed to. Like to me it was a powerful term. Like people would call me a Spitfire growing up. They would call me a firecracker. Like I always was like busting through the door with ideas and like all this like crazy energy as like, 2 and 3 year old.
Uh-huh.
And so I when I went through the program, I was like, I want to rename this. I want to like redefine what this is because all of the powerful women and men in my life had this quality to them. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I want to put a different spin on this. And so to
Hmm.
me, being a Spitfire is like fully acknowledging who you are in your purpose, in your motivation, and in the way you take care of yourself. And when you show up in that full alignment, you then ignite it in other people.
Mm,
So you're not like going out to empower people as your like specific agenda, but just by being you and living your truth, you then signal out to other people like, let your Spitfire shine.
yeah.
Come on, let's
Yeah.
go.
Word. I love that. I've been, as you know, uh, I surround myself with positive affirmations on the daily, and one of
Mhm.
my favorite ones at the moment is like when you burn your brightest, you allow others to burn their brightest.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true. It's so true. You can either choose to be inspired or just even more inspired.
Yeah, well, and it's also understanding that like not everyone's ready for their potential right now. Not everyone is ready to like be full out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I wrote a book back in 2018 called Spitting Fire, and the idea behind it was that everyone has this inner dial in them, and so knowing when to dial it up and when to dial
Hmm.
it back to rest is totally up to you. But when we feel out of control, when we feel that motivation coming from outside of us, that we get ignited, we have to understand when it's been too much, when we
Hmm.
can't sustain that flame, when we need to recharge and get our oxygen back in.
Yeah, yeah. And that's been something that you've been offering a lot of people, especially in your close circles and your business circles, is working them through that energy balance, right?
Yeah.
I know that you were running for a few weeks, some master classes on that, and I personally want to thank you. Your
You're
work
welcome.
has been phenomenal in helping me sort of just check my boundaries and
Hmm.
check that energy fuel, which has been like my buzzword for this pandemic has been boundary
Yeah.
setting. So on that note, how has, besides being Jersey Fresh and doing these nightly, twice weekly concerts with Justin Trawick, how else has this pandemic been affecting your business?
You know, it's been interesting because the first reaction I had was, "Oh crap, how am I going to get through this?
Mm,
How are my clients going to be impacted?" And it was like the first day or two that I realized that I was in the first stage of burnout. So it's a common misconception for the first stage to be exhaustion or to be tired, and that's actually not true. The first stage of burnout is for this like over amplification of expectations, where you try to do more, where you kind of start to like do this. So when the pandemic first hit, I was like, I have to be of service to everyone. How do I do this? And so I immediately wrote a 30-page ebook on how to telework with teams. I put together a free webinar. I think you were on that webinar that
I
we
was on the
did.
webinar. I didn't know about the ebook though.
Yeah, I
Damn.
wrote a
Okay.
30-page ebook in the span of 3 days. I
Oh my
designed the
gosh.
graphics, I promoted it, and I did that, and then I created this like really insane expectation of like follow-up activities of like I have to be this coach for the remote team, for the remote leader, and that's what I'm gonna do. And then I have to have these energy boosting sessions because people need me. And what I realized is I first have to take care of myself. What I was doing is I was pushing it out to this rung of population that I felt like I had to be of service to, but I wasn't taking care of myself and my immediate circle.
Mm-hmm.
And once I took that breath, I made the decision of like, it's time to scale back. Like there's nothing that I have committed to that I can't change. And I think where we get ourselves into trouble is when we say, well, I'm going to commit to this, and then we feel like we can't move it.
Mm-hmm.
Choice is power. And so when we are thinking, I can't do this or I have to do this, it's actually two of the lowest forms of language engagement. That's how we know we're actually on the verge of burnout because we're no longer in control. We're no longer
Mm-hmm.
in power.
Mm-hmm.
When I am in a place of choice, when I want to do things, then I'm scheduling things out. I'm checking my energy, I'm checking my resources, and I'm able to move things along in a way that works. And I'm also giving myself the flexibility to adjust when needed. But if I'm in this, I have to do this or I can't do this, I'm already feeling that constriction in my chest. Like I can't breathe. I can't make anything happen.
Mm-hmm.
And people have been programmed to think that they only can act under stress, but it actually is counterproductive and impossible to create ideas, to be like open to possibilities and innovation when we're under stress and consistent stress.
1,000%.
So I don't know if
1,000%.
that was answering your question, but that's kind of like what happened. It was this immediate like go 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 do do do, and then it was like, and here's the wall. Like it lasted for all of 5 days, But then I realized I needed to learn that lesson because all of my clients that came after that were about a week behind me in their
Right.
own journey. So I was able to show up for them and understand the process that they were going through,
Yeah.
versus me being like, I'm the coach and here's how you're going to work. Here's how everything is. Let's be mindful. Let's count. What's your mantra for today? And I've seen people do this and it drives me nuts because all it is mantra regurgitation. I'm like, do you know what your words mean? Do you actually know what it's like to be in the shoes of the people experiencing this crazy stress, this impossible feeling, this
Mm, mm,
fear, this
mm.
uncertainty? And so I wrote a blog about finding the pockets of joy when we're in an uncertain situation. Because it first starts with
I love
what's in
that.
my immediate control. Can I wiggle my thumb? Can I take a breath? Can I take
Hmm.
a step? Great. How do we build on that now? But instead we jump of like, how do I fix this impossible, huge mountain of a problem?
For sure, for sure. You mentioned the you said a buzzword I think that gravitates towards me a little bit at the moment is the word power.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially during this climate that we're
Mm-hmm.
currently going through, there is a lot of misconception, misunderstanding, and misuse of the word power. Can
Yeah.
you dig deeper into that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think that's the really empowering and also really challenging and scary thing about language is that we
Hmm.
all have our interpretation of what it means. And this is probably part of the bigger journey that I'm on is how do we spark curiosity versus judgment? So how do I not assume that I know what your definition of power is? How do we
Hmm.
come from a place of like, so when I say this word, what comes up for you? Or like,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts about this?
Right.
So that way, both definitions can be true. It's not an
Totally.
either or. So to me, like, power is about forward movement. It's about inertia. It's about traction. It's about choice. Like, it's a posture. I think power has been almost seen as like, well, if I have power, you don't have power. And I
Right.
think we can all have our own power, but
Right.
it's how do we use the power? And so there's different forms of energy. There's things that are kind of like protective mode of like, how do I protect what's mine? How do I defend my territory? And then there's power of like, how do we move this forward and grow it into something bigger?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. No, that's perfect answer. Thank you. 5 points to
Yeah.
Gryffindor.
I don't
No,
watch Harry Potter, but I think that's what that reference was
it
to.
was. You don't read Harry Potter?
No.
How are we friends? What is this?
Because both can be true.
I mean, true. And- Lessons in actions, my friends. Lessons in
Woo.
action. Um,
I know enough to be dangerous. That's about it.
there we go. Well, Gryffindor was Harry Potter's house.
Yes.
We don't have houses in New Zealand, so I mean we
We don't
have
have houses?
we live in, but not like schoolhouses.
Okay.
Okay, right, that was awkward.
I'm like, my sister lives in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure she lives in a house.
It's a home, okay? It's a home. No.
Got it.
So on sorry, I wrote these questions knowing that things would change significantly between the times when I first wrote these questions. We were talking about like the differences in, well, the introduction of curfews that have been coming into DC, which then got changed, lowered, and then lifted, and then I don't know if they've like I think they're back up to 11 p.m. now, at least in
I
DC.
think
I
they
don't know
got
what it,
lifted last night. Are they back?
I don't know.
I don't know
I don't
either.
I don't know either. But I also know that now we've got like introductions of certain military presence,
Hmm.
both here and in Maryland and in Virginia. And now, of course, we have a great big scene from space writing on 16th Street saying Black Lives Matter in front of the White House.
Hmm.
Um, I'm wondering if that is kind of showing up, if any of this is affecting your clients, your own Spitfire-ness, and how you're choosing to show up in a way that is, I don't know, to call a spade, to show up as a white-looking person
Hmm.
in a time of kind of disagreement and friction and hurt and misunderstanding.
Hmm.
How is all of that affecting your inner spark?
Yeah. Well, so I don't just look like a white lady, I am a white lady. And
Well,
so,
not everybody is, which is why I want to, like,
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
light-skinned brown person, so I get treated differently to darker
yeah,
skinned people. So I just
yeah. I mean,
want to
it's
acknowledge that.
absolutely. And I think that to not acknowledge it is kind of like I'm not gonna be like, this is my experience for all white people. This is my experience for my own vantage point, for my own lens. The really interesting thing is, like, listen, this has been an intense week for everybody. Like, it's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of like outrage,
Mhm.
rightfully so, and it's a lot of like, okay, what's next? Like, there's anticipation. There's a lot of like people are on edge.
Mhm.
People are feeling the feels.
Mhm.
We're laughing, we're crying, we're like, what's right, what's wrong? Like, is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? Um, as a coach, the conversations that I'm having are no different, but they are about different topics. These are universal principles because human rights are universal principles.
Mhm.
So all we're doing is focusing in on like what are universal truths to begin with. And
Yeah.
so I'm actually able to show up as an even more powerful coach because they're now ready. My clients are now ready to have different conversations.
That's
So I
awesome.
have clients all around the world. I have clients from the deep south, and we're having very similar conversations, which I'm really excited about because they have invited me in to check them. Like
Oh, that's awesome.
I get paid to check people on their blind spots. I'm like, I have the best job ever. I get to call people on their shit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And in the same breath, I have a whole community of coaches where we check each other. Like
Mhm.
these are not new conversations.
Mhm.
These are more intense conversations. Uh,
Mhm.
George Floyd's passing, his murder, is nothing new. It just got a lot of attention. So to me, this has been like the spark on top of like centuries of kindling and pressure that now we all see and you can't ignore. So all of I was laughing with one of my friends. I was like, all I'm dealing is like helping people become less of a Karen, like processing their white lady guilt. Yeah. And then I'm seeing all this stuff on Facebook. I'm probably gonna get myself into trouble. I don't care. I'm seeing all these people like pontificating on Facebook. And I'm just like, oh, so now you're aware of social injustice and you're gonna call yourself out on a racist. And it's like this immediate gratification of like, I'm saved now.
Mhm.
I got my badge. I'm okay. You don't hate me. I'm not a bad person. And it's like you have to educate yourself beyond just like copy and paste or
Yeah.
saying the right thing. Like this is a journey of like understanding your own bias, understanding those like learned belief systems, the societal cues. Like it is
Mm.
all around and it is so messy. And
Mm.
it's going
Mm.
to be a messy journey. And if it's nice and clean, like you haven't
You're on
done
the
the
wrong
work
path.
yet. Yeah, like you're taking the fast track of like what's going to bite you in the butt later on.
Yeah.
And so whenever someone comes to me as a client and says, what has your experience been? What have you learned from other clients? I'm like, oh, do you want the shortcut? Is that what you're looking for? No, you're still gonna do the work. Like, and that's the thing, is like there is a lot of work to be done. This is
Yeah.
not like in this weekend everything's gonna be resolved. Like injustice and inequality has existed since the beginning of this country. It has existed around this globe.
Mhm.
So we cannot fix it in a weekend, but we can start. We can look at the legacy we want to create and what are the small steps we're going to take on a consistent basis to raise the visibility and move things forward.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's I mean, in my own conversations, and I speak this as somebody who looks black but isn't, because I wasn't raised with you know, the I wasn't raised with this culture. I wasn't raised with the grief and the anguish and the slavery on my back. So I'm still learning, my
Mm-hmm.
uncarenness in some ways, um, kind of. But um, as you're having these conversations and as I'm having these conversations, I'm noticing a trend towards people, feeling the feelings, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to learn more about things, which is great. But I've also noticed a lot of people sort of expressing their white guilt by wanting to read books and know things theoretically without putting things into practice,
Mm-hmm.
and or doing the practice without necessarily thinking about their actions. For
Yeah.
example, like this movement recently of every white person seeming to call up their black brothers and sisters and be like, hey, y'all, just checking in. Are you good? And they're like, where have you been?
Where have you been? That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I was talking to my friend. She's like, oh yeah, I've got at least 10 calls from like 10 different people asking me if I'm okay.
Yeah. 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 So how can people navigate around that, do you feel? Is that something that we should be sort of working on, or
You
is
know,
that part of the process?
I mean, it's part of the process, but I think it's kind of like, looking for the motivation. Like, what is your intention behind it? Like, are you doing it because you want someone to tell you you're okay? Like, do you really care if that person's okay, or do you just want to be like the pat on the back that you did the right thing?
Right.
I think it's all about motivation. If you want to get involved, get involved. If you want to have conversations, have conversations. But like, it's the guilt of like expecting someone else to make you feel better. Like I feel really bad about myself. Can you make me feel better? It's kind of has that energy, that lead in energy. It's like, have a conversation, get involved, but like reconnect in a different way of like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Like, that's it. Or moving towards things. But I think to have like such a huge expectation and weight of responsibility on one conversation, and then kind of like moving down your list of like, what black people do I know? It's like, I think people know when they're being authentic, and I think everybody can read when someone's not. Like,
Yeah.
what are your intentions here? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. For real. For real. So in terms of being, coming back to being a Spitfire during this time, how are you as Lauren LeMunyan, Jersey Fresh, igniting your own flame through this
Um,
week?
I am napping a lot.
Oh,
Like, which
cool.
probably is not like the answer you thought, but to me, like self-care is rest.
Right.
I did 5 back-to-back sessions on Tuesday and I was ready to drop. I went to bed at 9 o'clock, slept for
Mm-hmm.
10 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I woke up, journaled. Like, to me, it's all about like honoring all of the facets of yourself, like the
Mm-hmm.
mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual of like, how are you able to serve all of those components? So to me, it's like, how do I support people in the way that works for me? How do I support the cause in a way that works for me? How do I show up for people in a way that works for me? And it sounds probably like really self-involved and selfish, but to me, if I can't sustain this, if I can't maintain my energy in the way that I show up, then this is short term, and I can't be of service to others.
Totally. Totally. How are you feeling about the protests during what is still a pandemic?
Yeah, I was scared, to be honest. I was like, there are a lot of people. I don't see a lot of masks, and I'm hoping that people don't get sick from this. I think honestly, not protesting is probably a bigger risk to our human health, given the amount of violence and destruction of people's lives. Like, I think protesting is absolutely necessary. I think it's one of those situations of yes and like, let's protest and be safe.
Yeah.
Let's wear masks. Let's wash our hands. Let's get that Purell action on. Let's keep our social distance as much as we can. Like, let's be
Mhm.
safe while moving this forward.
Yeah. No, that's 1000%. 1000%.
Am I like scoring? Am I getting like 100% on my
I,
interview test?
I think I've just ripped up the paper and I'm just throwing that out. I'm like, we're all good. All the gold stars. All the gold stars. And Hannah Jean is tuning in and saying she loves this
I
conversation.
love Hannah. She's so great.
Yay! I love
Yay.
love. There we go. There we go. I'm sure that Hannah's a great person and she gives great hugs. So I'm hugging her
I
from
think
my
you. I think you know
distance.
Hannah J of the Hannah J and the
Oh, that's
Highways.
Hannah. See, I know it's Hannah J. I don't
Yeah,
know
she
it's
goes
Hannah
by
Jean.
Hannah Jean. See, she
Ooh,
has many aliases too.
nice.
She too is part of the unpronounceable last name fan club.
I love it. I love it. That's we're all about that today. So besides napping, and
Writing.
writing, which I've started recently actually, and it's been phenomenal. I've realized recently that especially in times of turmoil and anguish and frustration, it is now more important than ever that I write down my daily wins
Hmm.
so that I can be like, okay, this day wasn't a complete flop. I'm actually, I'm doing stuff. But besides all that, is there anything that you're doing that is, moving you towards, staying positive, staying active, staying well fed spiritually and emotionally?
I think it's actually removing the expectation that everything's going to be positive. I've
Nice.
given myself permission to just stop. I always know that I'm at the midst of like a stress reaction when I start doing a lot of stuff. Like when I'm like, I'm going to start a coaching school, because I almost did that last week.
Okay, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Oh no, I
Okay.
already sketched out the building blocks.
Oh
But to
God.
me, it's like understanding that rest is just as important as action. And so for my current bandwidth, for what we have going on with performances, what I have going on with coaching, what my everyday like life energy is, it's understanding like what is in my tank, what do I have to use, and where do I need to recharge, and what are the values that I need to honor. So it's just like taking a pulse every day, every hour, like when I start to feel those changes that I have to be really aware of it, because my burnout is not happy. It does not make the people around me happy. um
Really? How
I'm not a
surprising.
nice person when I'm cranky. So to me, it's like understanding when I need to go out for a walk. I've been listening to, books and doing a lot of meditation. I have some favorite chants. I love yoga nidra. So it's kind of me of just like removing myself from understanding like what news is informative and when does the news start to like really just wear me down. And when do I
How do
need to
you
just
how do you navigate that? Because I feel that a lot of people, sorry, I don't feel, I think a lot of people, get really consumed by
Mhm.
the different messagings from different news sources, and then Twitter, and then Facebook, and then.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate between that?
Yeah, well, so the great thing is our body is a great indicator of when we've had too much. It knows when, okay, I'm curious, I'm finding things out, and then you feel it in your body when you just become like in the rabbit hole of like, I have to know all the things about this, and I need to check 7 different news outlets, and it starts to kind of feed the beast of
Mm-hmm.
like only looking for information that's kind of backing up your belief system and your points to the point
Mm-hmm.
where you are now like fully like rah. So it's
Mm-hmm.
understanding like if you want to feel the raw, know it's for the raw. But if you're saying to yourself, I want to be informed, but you're getting the raw and you don't want the raw, then it's like knowing where the limit is. I've had a lot of clients who will put time limits on what they will engage in on social media, on
Mm-hmm.
what programs they will watch for the news, on what news outlets they will look at. Maybe it's unfollowing or muting certain people on social media, but like if you know that there are points of activation for your stress that don't serve you, that are actually harming you, then that's actually self-care of like making that active choice to not engage.
Yeah, 1000%. And it's funny, I didn't even realize that the mute button was a thing until
Oh, it is.
very recently. I've just been taking the active decision to basically remove everybody who
Yeah.
is who is you know, showing up as somebody who doesn't like my skin color, which is fine.
That's a pretty easy qualifier right there.
I mean, or
There,
just or the skin colors that are darker than mine. I think,
yeah.
especially at the moment, because the sun has only been out for a couple of days, I still vaguely pass the paper bag test. Which again, if you're from New Zealand and or Australia or the UK and you don't know what the paper bag test was, it was a test that was up until what, the 60s,
Yeah.
late 60s, where
Hmm.
if you were darker than a paper bag, you were not allowed places. You were judged as somebody that of less worth. Um, yeah. So when it comes to, I don't know, like there's so many like health things that are, stress being such a health contributor to other illnesses and
Yeah.
things, and needing to manage what those look like for people. Um, I really worry about how that shows up for people, and because especially that RAR that you're talking about,
Hmm.
some people look for that RAR as in like a point of activation, but sometimes that RAR can simply be an unhealthy activation,
Oh,
right?
stress is addictive. Like stress is a drug.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, so if you think about, stress is actually a great motivator to get started. We call it
Mm-hmm.
catabolic energy in the school that I went through. And it gets things done. You're like, yeah, I got a reason. I'm going. I got all this energy. You have adrenaline that kicks up. You got cortisol that kicks up. And you're like, I'm ready to go. And so it creates this high. Like your brain is like, yeah, 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 let's do it. And just like if you were taking a drug, you have a high and then you come down from it. And so if you are programmed in a way that you get motivated from stress, you are constantly looking for stressors. So
Mm-hmm.
if you know people who like constantly love stirring the pot and creating drama, that to them is their activator. That's their motivator.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's knowing how to take the stress, that catalyst, and then convert it into a more sustainable, like, how do you bring other people into it to sustain it? How do you breathe? How do you create the internal process of like connecting it to your values? So you can have the stress, you can be outraged, and then you can convert it into something that makes it even like more sustainable and practical and long term.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because stress is meant for a short term thing. It's short term self protection.
Right. Right. Except that if you're feeling like it's a motivational tool that is getting shit done,
Hmm.
why would you want to not be stressed?
Because people do what works. People do what works, even if it hurts them.
Right.
Why do
Okay.
people do anything? Like, why do we put ourselves in unhealthy relationships? It's because
Yeah.
we've always done it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a belief system that's attached to it. Why do things happen? Because we haven't learned differently yet. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's good. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until we kind of can step back, we're in the weeds of it, and we feel like we are getting taken for a ride of like, well, this is how it always is. Like, I couldn't tell you how many clients I first start working with. They're like, I always do this. This is who I am. I'm like, okay, we're gonna unpack that one. 'Cause-
One of the things that I love about your coaching style is you have a very holistic approach to how you work with people.
Mhm.
You're very much, from at least what from what I know of you, and we've known each other for a couple of years now, but you very much like to acknowledge what is the good, and then very much acknowledge what is the bad, and then you always ask, so what makes it good and what makes it bad?
Mhm.
And why is it that we're labeling putting these labels on ourselves and putting these judgments on ourselves, judgment being a message that you've been pushing really hard over the last couple of weeks. What is it that Why do you feel that people are so judgmental of themselves and of each other, and what is it that motivates you to really be focusing on that holistic approach and the judgments that we place on ourselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not going to be a short answer because it's not there. There is no short answer to this.
Well, of course, yeah.
I mean, it's what we've absorbed. It's what has been around us, belief systems that we've seen in our communities, in our families, with our peers, in the media. Of this, I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Buy this product and you'll be enough, or look like me and you'll be enough, or do this thing and you'll be smart enough. I think there has been a systematic construction in our educational system, in the way that we treat people of being better or less than.
Mm-hmm.
And that has then been internalized as individuals. And so it's created this kind of quest for greatness when in reality we're already amazing people. We just
Mm-hmm.
have the weight of other people's bullshit and stories on us. We have their projection of their own securities that get added onto us. And it's not until we realize that it's their stuff or it's their fear that we have taken on as our own that we're living out. It's not until we can move that to the side to allow ourselves to emerge. So even when I get brought in, like as an executive coach to companies, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to just be yourself. I want you to shine as you. I don't want you reading leadership books. I don't want you like being someone else's model. Like, I want you to tell me what works for you. What has made
Yeah.
you feel awesome? What has made you feel successful? Because
Mm-hmm.
what works for me, what works for you, doesn't work for everybody else. because they're not us. They don't have the history. They don't have the experiences. They don't have the tone. It's different for everyone. But if we don't acknowledge ourselves as our own like individual representation of what we're here to do, then we're just becoming drones and recreations and comparing ourselves to the other expectation, and we're never going to be good enough.
Word, 1000%, 1000%. Which reminds me about, I don't know, as you're saying all this, I'm wondering, and my little Emma devil on my shoulder here is wondering, is that why you don't want to be a motivational speaker? Or
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people use that term, and honestly, I feel the same way about life coach, because just because you claim to motivate people does not mean that it's the way that people need to be motivated. So even me talking right now, like, I don't want you to live your life because I told you to. Like, I want you to feel it and know it as your truth. I want you to own it. I don't want you to like feel this high for 2 weeks and then be like, oh, everything fell apart because I needed to talk to Lauren. Like, I don't ever want to be that person for somebody where they need to talk to me. I want you to want to talk to me, and then I want you to come back to me and be like, holy crap, all these things happened because I made it happen.
Yeah.
And I think when people are looking for that external validation, that external motivation of like, here are the 5 things you need to do to be like a happy person, and then they don't do it, then they're like, well, then I must be a failure. So I think that a lot of people have come up with this like guru of like, follow my 3-step plan or my 10-step plan and you'll magically be happy or you'll magically be successful. And it's like, no, that's your version of success. And guess what? You're lining your pockets with your advice. And so coaching is not meant to be advice giving. It's meant to help people see their own truth. It's meant to put them in the driver's seat of their life and to help them sort out their belief systems. And that's why, like, I am a firm believer. If you want to be a coach, go get certified. If you want to do this type of work, do the work on yourself first, because otherwise you are transplanting your baggage and your projections onto other people.
Yet you still acknowledge the fact that you're still going through your own inner workings. Obviously, we all are. But I want to pick up on that because I think it's a really beautiful thing that you do, is that you do acknowledge, look, I don't have all the answers, but let's go through this journey of your own self-discovery together and see what treasures we can unlock.
Yeah,
right?
I have tools, I have processes, and I have principles, and those are available to any coach. Those are available to any person if you want to look at it. I just have a different way of expressing it. Nothing that I'm saying is like groundbreaking and new. It's just how I say it. Like, no, there's nothing proprietary about what I'm talking about here. You know?
No, I love it. Back when I was a youth empowerment coordinator for the YMCA, one of the overarching principles that we sort of worked towards was like working yourself out of a job. Basically, like, I don't want to work with a young person for the rest of their lives. I want to give them tools, give them ideas, allow them to, encourage them and work with them to think for themselves, to find those tools and skills to figure shit out for themselves, so that, in a year, 2 year, 5 years, whatever it is, they don't need me. They don't call you anymore. Yeah. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's all about seed planting. Like, just plant the seeds of goodness, and when it's ready to bloom in other people, like, you've done your work.
Word. Speaking of seed planting, how are you planting seeds? That was a great segue. What seeds are you planting at the moment for a post-corona, post-apocalypse,
You're assuming I'm going to make it through.
World? when we come out of this as a fairer, more beautiful, more respectful, more loving community, with no deaths as a result of this pandemic, what seeds are you planting to look forward to that future?
Yeah, well, I actually started a new project at the end of last year that I put on hold because I felt like I wanted to see what the landscape was. I wanted to make sure that it was relevant. I wanted to make sure that it was showing up for people in the way that it needed to. So I started this project called the ABCs of Awesome Living. It is
I like it.
It is a community of authors from different industry, different backgrounds, and each person grabbed a letter and a word and wrote 750 words about how that word showed up for them. And there's an exercise at the back of it. So I did some shifting around because two of the words I was like, this isn't really fitting the vision of what I want. So I'm waiting on two of those submissions, and everyone's super awesome. My mom wrote a piece. Justin wrote a
Awesome.
piece, but
Awesome.
some people were complete strangers. Some people were connections from other people. There's some coaches in there. There's a baker in there. There's an interior designer. There's a videographer, and it's just really cool to kind of hear their stories and their
Mm,
perception of how that contributes to awesome living.
that's amazing. How did you come up with that idea?
I wrote a blog as I was going through the coaching process. Like, so when you become a coach, I call it the baby giraffe syndrome, where like you feel like you've got all of it. You're like ready to go. You're like, I'm gonna show everybody how to be really awesome and like super smart and be happy. And you're so awkward that you're like, I got this, and you're like, boom. So in my baby giraffeness, I wrote this blog called The ABCs of Awesome Living, and all it was like the letter and a word and a brief sentence. I didn't even
Mm.
include the letter Y. Like that's how like out of my depth I was.
So you
I
went through the
forgot the letter
ABCs and
Y.
you've eradicated an entire letter.
I totally just was like, why not? So
ABC except for that one, and that one looks funny. So
yeah, well, I even had one for X, but it was just
oh
like X was so hard. Let's skip to Z.
oh my Lord.
Yeah, so that's where it came from, and I thought, you know, this would be really cool to expand it. And then I'm like, I don't want to go and write another book again. Like writing Spitting Fire was a really amazing cathartic experience, but to write a book is huge. Like it is like birthing a child. I don't have kids, but it's intense, and you
Hmm.
feel every insecurity imaginable, and
Hmm.
you feel very alone and super judged. And I thought, well, if I have 25 other people with me, then there's strength in numbers and they got my back, so I'm good.
Hmm.
So that was the
Right.
idea.
That's cool. That's really cool. And I'm assuming that people can get that book from your website,
When
spitfirecoach.com.
when it is available, I actually have purchased the domain of ABCs of Awesome Living.
Of course you have. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so there'll be a wait list, a pre-sale list, all that stuff. So
Okay.
when I put my book out, it was like, let's do the thing now. And I did no promotion on it and just crossed my fingers and just wanted to get it done. So
Right.
we're taking a very different approach. We're going to like actually have a plan and market it and promote it because I think that it's a really awesome collection of stories, and
Hmm.
anyone can like pick it up and read a chapter, or read the whole thing or read it backwards, and it's all universally connected so that
Hmm.
no matter if you have a day or you have 20 minutes, you can get something from it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the art of storytelling and connection through just communication. It's
Yeah.
there's so much, and I imagine that you've got like a range of ages
Mm-hmm.
that are being represented in the book as well.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
range,
cool.
age of ranges, different backgrounds from all over the country. I don't think we have any. Actually, we do have one. We have one international writer. We have someone in Jamaica. So,
Okay,
yes.
that's cool. Go ahead with yourself. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with me. Do you have anything else that you want to sort of plant seeds of in those that are listening, or that you want to really encourage people to address in themselves this next week?
Yeah, I mean, the one theme that before protests started was all about helping people check what was reasonable and realistic for them. And this is the stuff we were talking about in the energy boost. So,
Hmm.
you know, if people need support on that, I've created a worksheet of like how to kind of reset into something that's more sustainable and maintainable for the long haul. But if you need any free resources, spitfirecoach.com. There's tons of videos, blogs, worksheets, you name it, it is there because I'm all about supporting people through all the feels.
Of course, and of course you're available for hire for workplaces and
Yep.
one-on-one coaching as well.
One-on-ones are currently on hold until July.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there is a current wait list right now because it has been crazy.
Yeah,
Good crazy, but yeah.
yeah.
So I'm having a wait list until July 1, but if you're interested, let me know and we can talk about it.
And I can attest firsthand that, I mean, obviously if you didn't get that from this particular real talk, you know, watch this again. But Lauren, you are an absolute unicorn, and you have so many superpowers and goddess-like qualities that just empower the crap out of people.
I'm gonna
And
empower the crap
even,
out of you.
I mean, even when, like, I think I saw you when I was in one of my lowest spaces just after my father passed away, and all kinds of things. And you have this quality about you that just empowers the crap out of people. There's no other way to put it.
Beautifully said.
I was crapless when I left. No.
We just empowered the crap out of you so we could see it.
I mean, hey, leading with authenticity, it's all out there. Cool. Again, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you again to Lauren LeMunyan, aka Jersey Fresh, for spending the last hour with us, this last power hour.
By so fast.
I know, right?
Whew.
Time flies when you're empowering the crap out of people. Don't forget to stay awesome, guys. Lead with authenticity. Be your own kind of superhero. Spread love like it's going out of fashion. And please, for the life, I can't even talk properly. For the love of cheese, don't forget to call your mum.